Hello, hello, and welcome to Retrospective Rants, with me, Joey Huff, as your host. This episode, we're going to talk about something very serious. The most serious of all serious things, in fact. Philosophy. Yeah, I know. Most people want to talk about philosophy the same way they want sandpaper bedsheets. But I'm not here to give a history lesson, and I'm not here to describe the unnumbered schools of philosophy. I'm only going to talk about the very basics, meaning I'm going to tell you what philosophy is. And hopefully it won't take more than 20 minutes. A philosophy is the reason that a person lives their life. It is the collection of beliefs that describe an individual's assessment of themselves and the world around them, and informs how they interact with other people and the world at large. That's it. That's what philosophy is. But why do people make such a big deal about it? Why are people always making fun of it? Why are so many people who study philosophy permanently trapped up their own asshole? The answer to all of those questions is the same. Philosophy is about people and why they act the way they do. And that means it can be as healthy or unhealthy as we make it. Again, very simple. The thing in and of itself, as Socrates might say. Now there's a name that you might recognize, but I bet it's also a name that most people don't have a real opinion on, because philosophy is often dismissed as an idle diversion of a privileged and overeducated elite. It's treated as a waste of time, because it doesn't make buckets of money and thus has no use in our increasingly materialistic world. The fact that these preconceptions have been crafted by that very same political elite is, I'm sure, a pure coincidence. But it's also another conversation for another time. The main point is that we the people have been conditioned on an instinctual level to view philosophy, and especially the prolonged study of philosophy, as a distraction from the real world. We are encouraged to believe that taking the time to think about what we do and why it may be good or bad will distract us from our immediate and often forced circumstances. And of course, the need for food, comfort, and increasingly expensive luxuries ensures that we will have every motivation to comply. We may not even realize that this refusal to think on philosophy in favor of compliance is in fact just another philosophy. And in my opinion, it is a very unhealthy philosophy. You see, despite all the praise that some may give the human race, and especially for our vaunted capacity for reason, it should be apparent to everyone that human beings can easily fall into a baser state. And I'm not even talking about an aggressive or animalistic state. I am referring to our habit of shutting off when we're tired. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking a break after a stressful time or taking the time you need to recover from trauma. But what happens when you stay that way all the time? Think of your job and how, despite some of the challenges you meet, there will be long stretches of time where you are just going through the motions, like a machine left to do some basic task. And you might stay that way day after day after day. Maybe there were times in your life where you had nothing going on. Maybe you were emotionally frozen after a loved one died. And nothing, not even the necessities of life or the encouragement of others, could thaw you. And so you would just wander about where you might be comfortable at home, or maybe to the nearest grocery store if you were feeling up to it, and you'd eat and shit when you needed to, and maybe, just maybe, you'd hang out with a friend. but only as long as you didn't need to go too far, or you didn't have to clean yourself up too much. Kinda like cattle. The truth is, life is not easy. The world around us is always changing, both because of nature itself and because of the actions and wants of other people. And no matter how empathic or sensitive you believe yourself to be, you will inevitably draw the conclusion that you are alone against it all. You alone are responsible for your own decisions. You alone are the keeper and maker of your best self, both physically and mentally. And even then, there are further limitations. You might not know how to solve a particular problem in your life. You might be stricken with a disease that leaves you unable to work as you'd like, or maybe you just don't have the physical strength, the force of personality, or the smarts to get ahead. And that's not even accounting for how other people will react to you, or how they're dealing with their own situations and their own difficulties. And looming above it all is death. You are going to die. And whatever say you might have had in the world, little as it was, will die with you. Your accomplishments, grand or small, will be left to the mercies of time and whoever else might survive you. To me, this is a daunting situation. And it's also the reason why many people are unsatisfied with their lives. They know, even if they won't admit it, that existing for the sake of existing is a very unfulfilling state, and that without a good reason to endure all the tedium of life, there's no reason to live or continue living. It's why so many people busy themselves with chasing the newest or latest highs or fads, or why vices like alcohol can turn into crippling addictions. They distract people from hard truths and keep them going through the motions a little longer. And it is also for that reason that studying philosophy is so important. Because pursuit of philosophy, even casually, will help you find a reason for living, and thus help you become a stronger, freer, and happier human being. Now, for this episode, I will not advocate for a specific philosophy above any others, because that is beyond the purview of this episode. I only wish to encourage any who are listening to think on why. I encourage you to think on why you are where you are in life. Why is your current path in life making you feel fulfilled or empty? Why are you content or unsatisfied? And once you start with those questions, I hope you will study philosophy and read works on philosophy, not because you will find the answers to the big questions in those books, but because they will teach you how to find your own answers and teach you how to navigate your problems in the future. That's my philosophy behind studying philosophy, or at least getting started on it. As for why you'd want to read the millennia's worth of books on the subject, it's for the same reason you would study established physics before researching something more theoretical. You learn from work that someone else did so that you can build from it. The other reason is one I already mentioned. Reading philosophy, even if you don't agree with what a particular author might believe, will train your mind and make it stronger. Think of it as calisthenics for your brain, the same way some people view arithmetic. That being said, just like some exercises are more stressful and complicated than others, there are some texts, and indeed entire philosophical issues, that are more complicated than others. Full disclosure, I was blessed with the advantage of going to a high school that had classes for philosophy. Unfortunately, because of the limits of any educational setting, the deeper meaning of these classes was often treated with the same respect I had for the rest of my schoolwork, meaning not much. No offense to teachers, but many who choose that vocation, especially if they are new to teaching or very passionate about teaching, will often forget that students, meaning kids, of any grade, have a primal hatred of being told what to do. And what is school but an entire day of adults telling kids what to do? For this reason, kids don't want to be in school. They do not like having to think about school when they're out of school, and no matter how important a piece of information may be, there is a greater than evens chance that it will only be remembered for as long as it needs to be to get through the school day, and then it will be discarded. But despite the tedious nature of general education, I was lucky enough to have a few good teachers in my life. The kind that you remember fondly, despite 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 annoying interactions. And by the time I got older, I was very thankful for the fact that they introduced me to a few books that kickstarted my interest in philosophy and helped me build my knowledge and prepare me to read more comprehensive works. First off is The Journey by Peter Kreeft. An old friend of mine once described this book as the magic treehouse of philosophy. At the time, I found the description to be simplistic and insulting, but eventually I took his meaning. Few works take the time to summarize the key thoughts behind each of the major schools of philosophy and list their principal contributors in plain speech, but The Journey does just that. Now, Peter Kreeft is a Catholic philosopher and academic, and he ends his book with a very Christian conclusion. However, even if you disagree with that conclusion, the book serves a key purpose in starting you on the path of thinking philosophically, because each of the famous schools of philosophy, cynicism, nihilism, and what have you, have all their basic beliefs summarized clearly. Even if you disagree with Kreeft's ending assessment of each philosophy, the basic information is still there, and you will be able to form your own opinions on it. My second recommendation is the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I recommend this one in particular because it is a philosophical text that is not written by a career philosopher. No, these are the thoughts and mental exercises of a man who dealt with a myriad of issues and, informed by his study of philosophy, developed ways to mentally and spiritually prepare himself so that he might overcome those issues. In short, it is why I recommend studying philosophy. The text is also written in such a way that, much like The Art of War, the lessons that you take away from the writings can be applied to many things besides those stated in the core text. I might as well recommend The Art of War as well, for the reasons I just stated. After that, I would encourage you to read whatever you want, with one final caveat. In Western philosophy, there is a clear divide between the classical and modern philosophers. Beginning with René Descartes, and then ending with a bunch of chain smokers from Europe, you will encounter professional academics. And these professional academics will do what professional academics do best. They spend just as much time criticizing other people's work as they do in advocating their own. That means they reference principles or ideas that are covered in other texts, often without explaining them fully or presenting them in a context that the original author did not intend. Some of these guys even rely on other philosophers' opinions on other philosophers, yes, it's the academic equivalent of a game of telephone, to inform their own conclusions. Meaning, if you want the full picture of Western thought, you'll have to study what the classical philosophers like Aristotle and St. Augustine are saying in order to understand what the modern philosophers like Edmund Burke and Friedrich Nietzsche are saying. Now, you can read the actual texts or listen to them via audiobooks, it doesn't matter. As long as you get started and you keep going, your mind will grow its muscles and you'll get the confidence to read further on and then make larger scale decisions for yourself and with an enhanced awareness towards their consequences and worth. And then that will inform you of your own self-worth and help you to establish the value in living and why you ought to continue doing so. That's the value of philosophy, and it's why I believe it is so important to study. And it is also where I end my rant. If you enjoyed listening for whatever reason, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. It helps me make more content like this. You can also listen to some of the previous episodes you might not have listened to, since a bunch of it is geared more towards comedic skits or general media analysis. It's less heavy than this. Whatever your choice, thank you so much for listening to Retrospective Rants, and have a good one.